A very good morning, dear friends and fellow alumnus, to our webinar today. This is indeed our 20th program. It's great to see all of you online on a Sunday morning. This lockdown has blurred the lines between a workday and a weekend because, as you all are aware, there's an increasing number of weekend webinars to engage people stuck in homes because of a virus. This networking arm of IATA has touched our lives in more ways than one. With majority of our alumni being entrepreneurs, it was an organic decision to float AABN as a dynamic entrepreneurial ecosystem that caters to domestic and global markets. It's not just a talent pool, it is also a space for established entrepreneurs. Thanks to our entrepreneurs and their expertise, we have helped many members in business proposals make informed and viable choices driven by market needs. Thanks to the internet, online connectivity, and the dime a dozen apps, staying safe indoors does not mean missing out on meeting interesting people and imbibing positives from the work and life. Over the past 5 months, we have been able to put together online programs to keep our ABN community not just engaged, but also meet a range of inspiring people who can help shape your ideas and thoughts. Today, we have one such personality, Mr. S. Muralishankar, a respected businessman and a visionary. What makes him an apt choice for this audience is that he too is an alumnus of Annamalai University and he belongs to the 1982 batch mechanical engineering. I have the pleasant duty of welcoming and introducing him today at Forging Industry Overview and Export Opportunities, an interactive business networking session. Forging has unique value among manufacturing process. The industry is a key link between critical manufacturing segments, basically the metal suppliers and end user industries. Forgings are intermediate products used widely by original equipment manufacturers in the production of durable goods. They are found in the machines, vehicles, and equipment used to generate our industrial economy. Forging imparts advantages that few processes can duplicate. The industry's future is based on improving upon these advantages. Mr. S. Muralishankar will dwell on the features of forging that makes the process and industry so important to designers and use of component manufacturers. Among the industries that depend on forgings are automotive and truck, agriculture machinery and equipment, valves, fittings and petrochemical applications, hand tools and hardware, railroad equipment, general industrial equipment, ordnance, marine and aerospace. The transportation industry gives a lot of opportunities to optimize engineered components with forging and casting technologies. Forging, despite this misperception that it is an old manufacturing process, is quite sophisticated and advanced. Through the process of analyzing the key competitive challenges that will shape its future, Super Auto Forge has identified specific goals that will have the most profound impact on the competitiveness of the industry as a whole and on the value of its contribution to the global market, global manufacturing market. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. S. Muralishankar, and we feel profoundly honored that you have taken time off on a Sunday morning to address us. Now, if we were to provide you with a comprehensive profile of Mr. S. Muralishankar, I might require more than the time we have fixed for this whole program. So I will limit myself to a few that will capture the essence of his achievements and activities. After his graduation at Annamalai University, he went on to complete his post-graduation from IIT Madras and then did his PG diploma in decision support system from IIM Ahmedabad. After a very brief stint at Sundaram Fasteners, he joined his family business in 1989. We all know that Super Auto Forge is the pioneer in the field of cold and warm forging in India. He has been spearheading the R&D and has been instrumental in developing complex products through innovative process, and Super Auto Forge has few patents to its credits in processes. He is currently the managing director of Super Auto Forge. He was president in AAFI for a term and is also the vice president of NSCR. He is also in the executive committee of EPC and member of ICFG. He is also a member in the board of studies in a couple of reputed educational institutions. Super Auto Forge received the Star Performer Award from EEPC and FIEG for export category. Super Auto Forge has won several prestigious awards for the best-in-class suppliers from customers like Chrysler, Polaris, Brakes India, Hyundai, etc., to name a few. That's not all. Besides his deep involvement in the educational institution, he has also been focusing on skill development of young people with a firm vision for the future. The founder chairman of Super Auto Forge is our distinguished alumnus, Mr. S. Sitaraman, from the 1961 batch mechanical engineering. He has made a significant contribution to the Alumni Association, regularly and has been a very active supporter and a keen participant in all the alumni activities. On the personal side, the University Circle remembers Mr. S. Muralishankar for his warmth and love of sports. With a personality like S. Muralishankar, you can go on and on eulogizing. But let me stop here and let the audience have the privilege of listening to you, sir. My sincere thanks to all the core committee members of ABN for the continued support and dedication in this pursuit. Thank you and welcome everyone once again. Over to you, Mr. Muralishankar.
Yeah. Good morning to you all. Let me first thank Gopi and Tarik for some of the experience with the IITs. So I would like to, this COVID time has been very challenging for all of us. In the sense, one is all of us, when we have been used to networking, meetings and all. Now we are at home, forced to stay at home and then go for a digital networking. So under these circumstances, say definitely this ABN is doing a wonderful job. So I would like to once again thank ABN for giving me this opportunity, and I would like to start my presentation. Let me just share that. Gopi, can you give me the sharing this thing, right?
Yes, Murali, you can share. You are a co-host actually.
Okay.
You can share.
Okay.
You can actually share the desktop window and then switch
Okay,
over.
I shared.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it visible now?
Yeah, it is visible. Perfect.
So let me just, I would like to share my thoughts with regard to what exactly is overview about forging and forging industry in India and global scenario. Then I would also like to just give an overview of the auto component industry. Basically, even though we are primarily forging is part of the auto component industry, even though it caters to non-automotive industries, the primary customer is auto industry. So I would also like to touch upon the current auto component industry, how the scenario is with regard to the pre-COVID and post-COVID days, and the current global opportunities now available, and also how this can be capitalized by the MSMEs. And lastly, I would like to touch upon about Super Auto forging bit. See, when you see forging is one of the old processes, it's nothing but a blacksmith making the hammer and all. This is one of the oldest process which is evolved by the mankind. But as we innovate, it is currently used for a lot of auto industry. It is, I would simply say, the forging is moving the metal. It is not removing metal. So the simple this thing is, what are the shape? We move metal to the shape and we don't remove the metal. I would like to just give you a overview or a comparison of how a forging is as compared to the other conventional process. Say one of the akin process which is to forging is casting. So what in casting container similar to the part. So when you see on your left hand side the cast part, see what is happening is in casting there will be porosity and it may not have the strength, and there are only certain materials which can be cast. Then when it comes to other akin operation is machining. So you take a material which is similar to, which is the diameter of that, and then you remove the material. So, but the machining is not a, I would say, mass production. When especially in an automotive, in the world today, they are making close to 80 million cars. That is cars and SUVs and all. See, imagine suppose some of the parts in a car can have around 7 to 8 numbers for each vehicle. So, which means when you want to have almost 500 million parts, doing machining is out of question. So, one of the very mass production technique is the forging. Say, material, since we move the material, the strength of the part is also. You can see the difference in the casting. We have small micro these blowholes are there, whereas in the machining, the material, the fibers are cut, whereas in the case of forging, the fibers are moved and inherently there is a strength added to this. So this is a brief overview of what forging is. And I would also like to share with you, there are commonly, when you say forging, what comes to our mind is only the hot forging. So normally, predominantly, hot forging is the major, when in the forging industry, almost 70% of the industries are concentrated only in hot forging. Hot forging is one where you heat the material to 900, 950 degrees, and then you have a hammer, presses, the shape you forge it, and mostly it is predominantly it was closed open die forging, wherein there will be a lot of flashes and material loss will be there. Then you trim, then subsequently post forging operations like heat treatment, machining are done. So predominantly in an automotive, the connecting rod, the crankshafts, some of the transmission gears are hot forged. Then the cold forging, the necessity of cold forging came during the Second World War, when they were using the during the war, when they were using the rifles and machine guns and all, they needed the bullets, they needed the armaments. So they were using copper or brass armaments, that casings and all. At that time, when the war was at peak, they were not able to produce that much of armaments. So basically, the cold forging was invented in Germany. This was invented by a company called Neumer, and the first product which was cold forged was the cartridge casings for the defense. So then slowly, once they were able to do that, and it was really a complicated part. So imagine anti-aircraft missile, and which is when from the ground they fire the anti-aircraft armaments. It is done at 100 pieces a minute. So within that 100, which is 1/100th of a minute, it has to blast. The bullet has to go out. Then the body has to shrink, come out of the barrel. Then the next one is loaded. So it has to have a lot of mechanical properties and also have sufficient strength not to burst inside the barrel, but at the same time it should also compress within the short time. So such kind of strength at different areas, like in the where the bullet is there, it has to have a much higher strength. Where there is where in the barrel where you have the gunpowder, the strength has to be relatively low. So that was possible only with cold forging. So then slowly when automotive came, and especially with regard to the new generation cars, say till late 80s, most of the cars were rear wheel driven. Right? We used to have the propeller shaft and then the back wheel drive. Now almost all the vehicles, we have the front wheel drive. So what happens is, from the engine, there is directly a drive mechanism which directly goes to the wheels. So those parts which are front wheel, those components are primarily cold forged. They cannot be made by any other process. Say especially the part which is shown, especially this tripod and inner races, they can only be cold forged. And what happens is when you do cold forging, it also adds strength to the part, because you don't heat the part, you anneal the part. First, the blanks are made and it is annealed to a temperature of around 800 degrees. It is heated and then slowly cooled so that it becomes amenable and ductile for forging. And in cold forging, we use very high energy presses to do the forging. So such parts can only be cold forged. And another category which evolved in the late 80s is the warm forging. See, what happens is certain parts which are like a high carbon steels, or steels which are having complicated shape, steel where you require parts where you require much material movement. Say what happened is the warm forging is done between 750 to 900 degree, and it has the advantage of both cold forging and hot forging. So what happens, it can have higher deformation. You can make parts which are complicated in nature, but at the same time they can be done without much loss of material. And another big advantage of forging, cold forging, is the dimensional accuracies. Say most of the cold forged parts are near net shape, which requires very little machining. So very little, or I would say in some of the cases there is no machining is needed. So what happens is when parts are highly mass produced, I would say in terms of the weight, cold forging we can do up to some 5 to 6 kilograms. Warm forging can from 5 kilograms to 15 kilograms. Hot forging even you can do up to 30, 40 kgs. For example, front axle beam of a truck, which is hot forged, typically it is around 300 kilos. So you also have big forging presses which can do the forging. So currently the forging industry as such is going through a transition phase. As you are all aware, we are talking about introduction of electric vehicles. So what happens is when if you look at the forging, especially the hot forging, the main components are crankshafts, connecting rods, and then engine transmission gears. But when you go for electrical vehicles, there is absolutely no IC engine. So the IC engine is totally going to be replaced by an electric motor. And also there is no transmission gears, because you can vary the speed of the electrical motor and directly have a drive. So with the advent of the electric vehicles, the forging industry is under the big threat. So I would say they have to look at different parts which can be forged, or by which they can take their capacity. So under these circumstances, there is a lot of thrust to cold forging and warm forging. And also the forging industry is now looking at diversifying into other areas, like predominantly a lot of cast parts are now forged. Say what is happening is especially for the metro rails, for the wind and solar sector, now a lot of parts are being forged. And one more area, the latest area where forging industry is moving is towards lightweighting. What is happening is with the emission norms and all, say a lot of high alloy, say like magnesium and aluminum alloys are being replaced or replacing the steel parts. Traditionally, in a propeller shaft yoke, you have most of you would have seen the UJ cross and the yoke for the propeller shaft. Traditionally, they are all steel forged. Now, those things are replaced by aluminum forging. So the aluminum can give the strength, alloy aluminums can give the strength. So when you use low, I would say lightweight parts, the overall energy required to drive a car also becomes less. So the emissions will also be less. So the thrust area for today, the forging industry is moving towards lightweighting and also looking at opportunities to convert castings or other machine jobs into forging. Because this primarily, a big group is working in Europe and US towards this objective. Then coming to the forging industry as such in India. So in India, the forging industry is around, basically this is located in 3 clusters. One is the Chennai Bangalore cluster. Then second is the Pune cluster, Pune Gujarat cluster. And the third one is northern cluster, where it is NCR, Ludhiana, and Faridabad. So primarily, these are all the 3 clusters where forging industries are located. And if you really look at the forging industry, we have around 450 units in India, out of which the biggest thing is only 8% of this 450 units are big scale. Most of the, which means 92% of the forging industry is small scale or in the MSME sector, MSME and SME sector. And that's one of the big, I would say, challenges and the opportunity for the forging industry. So this is the Indian scenario. And coming to the global forging, and with this 450 forging units, in fact, India has taken over the second spot. Earlier, Japan was the second. China is producing almost 39% of the forgings which is produced in the world. And India is the second place. Earlier, it was Japan. Recently, last year, India moved to the second spot. And Europe is 23%. Of course, it is the combination of Germany, Italy, Spain, France, everybody. So what happened in India last year, we produced close to 25.5 lakh million tons of forging, and which is around 25,000 crores. And today, I would say the 1/3 of what is being exported as auto components out of India are forged components, which is around, India's forging industry is exporting around 9,000 crores every year to global OEMs. And this is and India is known for its quality of forging and also the track record on the forging. Now coming to auto component industry. So basically what is happening is India predominantly is known for its, especially after the IT revolution. Earlier in the early 90s, India started looking at exports in a big way, but there was not much momentum. So basically the momentum started after 2000. Say when basically when we had this IT revolution, the overall perception of the global world towards India changed. Say earlier they were looking at India as a nation where it is a land of snake charmers and where there is not much technologies available. From that position, because of the trust in IT and the way our IT companies have done, so the perception got changed, and a lot of companies started looking at India as for a precision components. So if you really look at from 2010 onwards, India has been growing on an average at the rate of 10%. And in the last few years, the growth is much higher. And in the coming years, it's going to be still more higher percentage. So predominantly, India exports a lot to almost 25% of the Indian exports goes to North America, and another close to 25% goes to Europe, 30% goes to Europe, and the Asian countries another 26%. And currently, I would like to just touch upon the opportunities that we have currently. Say when just before COVID, the industry had a sort of a recession. Say what was happening is in 2018-19 till 2018-19, even the forging industry and the auto component industry, there was almost a very good growth, there was a growth of 15%. Then last year, the growth sort of stunted because of recession in domestic market. Of course, there was no recession in the export market. And I would say 2018-19, for some of the companies who are predominantly domestic, both the forging as well as the auto component, the growth was negative. Whereas those who are concentrating in exports, they had a growth of single-digit growth. But what has happened just before the COVID and after that was the trade war between USA and China that started. And yes, thanks to Trump, the Chinese, what happened? The US started levying huge customs duty on the imports from China. So the customs duty was almost from 15% to 25%. In an auto component industry, that's a very big factor, especially with 20% customs duty. China has become, they were becoming non-competitive. Even though the Chinese government provided a lot of this thing, it was becoming non-competitive. And what happened during that period to thwart the threat, Chinese companies, they started forming a lot of shell companies in Thailand, in Malaysia and all. So they were they were manufacturing the parts in China, then importing it to Malaysia, Thailand, and then exporting it from there. So they sort of circumvented the customs duty problem for a time being using that. But then again, what happened is USA started looking at the country of manufacturing. So they wanted a certificate that at least 60% of the value addition should be done at the country where it is exported. So that was also these Chinese companies who formed the shell companies, they had a problem. Now they are looking at setting up industries in India, Thailand and all. So that's the reason that a lot of Chinese companies are looking at India as a base for their manufacturing. Then came the COVID. During the COVID time, a lot of mistrust has happened over the way the China handled the whole COVID. And even today, the entire European and US, North American, they all believe that this problem of pandemic is mainly due to China. So all these factors have now made, it has created a lot of opportunities for the Indian both forging industry as well as the auto component industry. See, what has happened is both India and in the recent, I would say 3-4 months, companies have started getting a lot of new RFQs. And probably one more thing what has happened in the domestic market also. Say like companies like Hyundai, then Maruti, they have also been importing a lot of components from China. So now the government has given them a directive. Beyond April, direct imports from China, it will be scrutinized and they have to relook at indigenizing them. So that has also created a new opportunity for the. And second is this is by this there is huge RFQs or inquiries from not only from global OEMs, also domestic OEMs. And second is during that COVID period, say like I just touched upon the impact of the EV to the forging industry or auto component industry. Say for you to give an overall idea, when an electric vehicle comes, totally close to 600 components, auto components will not be there in the electrical vehicle as compared to a IC engine or a diesel or a petrol vehicle. So that's going to be not only forging industry, some of the auto component industries are also going to face a huge problem because of the introduction of electric vehicles. But now what has happened is during the COVID period, the car OEMs, especially the big threes in US, Chrysler, Ford, and GM, and also companies like Volkswagen, Toyota Motors, and Honda, they are relooking at their strategy of going for electric vehicles. The main reason being for electric vehicles, for the batteries, today, China is one of the main source for lithium. They control around 80% of the global lithium reserves, and another 20% is in Bolivia. See, what has happened is they had by some means also got the long-term leasing for those mines in Bolivia. So practically today, China controls the lithium reserves of the world. So considering this factor, today all the car manufacturers, they are relooking at whether to go for the such electric cars in a full throttle, or now what has happened is especially the Toyota and Honda Motors, they are coming out with a hybrid vehicle. This will be a IC engine hybrid with fuel cells, especially hydrogen cells, because you can easily produce hydrogen with solar cells and all. So there is a lot of solar available in India and a lot of tropical countries. So this is a new avenue or a new area the auto manufacturers are looking at. So this is really creating, I would say, this it has slowed down the introduction of electric vehicles to some extent. I will not say it is totally stopped, but people are rethinking about that strategy. Then I just, in that earlier slide, I had given you the overall potential. If you see our Chinese market, China can almost produce 39% of the worldwide forging requirement. And similarly, they have around 40% of auto component for the global industry. Imagine, even if 10% of that volume is diverted to India, and Indian component manufacturer and forging manufacturer are able to grasp that potential, then there will be almost 80,000 crores additional business for the auto component industry. This is not a small amount. 80,000 crores is just, if you look at the auto component industry today, it is 106,000 crores is the export they are doing. Almost 80% of what export they are doing, they will be able to grow by that much of, even by 10% shift of business from China to India will aid us to achieve that figure. And it is not it's not just a dream or the thing. It is definitely a reality, and we are seeing a lot of OEMs, tier one, working towards that. So this is the this is the opportunity we have got. Then I would like to just say why SMEs. See, as I had given you the perception about the Indian forging industry, even in Indian forging industry, almost 92% are SMEs and MSMEs. And today, if you really look at the SMEs, they are the largest providers of employment to the country, and they also contribute substantial to the Indian GDP. And if you look at the exports also, they have one of the largest export earners. Say, even big corporates, they are also exporting. But when you consider the overall exports, SMEs are not lagging behind. I would say they are equal to the big corporates. And another important statistics recently, which was the Indian Council of Scientific Research, they made a survey, and it was brought out that most of the innovations in terms of technology, new product, it is done at SMEs level and not big corporates level. So this is an opportunity for the entire Indian SMEs to capitalize on this current market scenario. And basically, as an SME, basically this is because the drive for an SME comes from the individual who does not want to be employed, who want to manage the business, and He's also, as an entrepreneur, he has to be extrovert, because he has to deal with, to start with, he has to play a role of a marketing person, also a role of a purchasing person, also a role of a production in charge and a HR. So he has to be more extrovert, and this can only arise out of a hard work, and he should also have a passion for all these things. And definitely today, I would say a lot of the Indian youngsters, the younger generation Indians, they have a lot of such this thing, and they are also willing to take a lot of risk to achieve these goals. And today, SMEs also contribute substantially to the export. SMEs also, yeah. Then next point of what I would like to touch upon is what are all the opportunities today, and why today we will be able to capitalize these opportunities rather than the earlier days. Say today, as we had seen in the graph, the auto component industry is also growing at the rate of close to 10%. And the overall economy is also reviving even after COVID. And there is also a strong political leadership. And the ease of doing business has really, I would say this is a big factor. Say, I would like to just share with you a couple of our own example. Say last year, we were looking at setting up a SEZ unit. So we were looking at various opportunities in Tamil Nadu. At that time, we could not get a correct this thing. Then we went to Sri City and we set up. We wanted to do it very fast. You will be surprised, within 45 days from the day we inquired with them. Fortunately, we had a constructed shed available. On the 45th day, we were able to start our production. So the single window clearance was there, and everything was made digital. And practically, there was, because of this single window concept, there was also not much. There was no, I would say, no corruption also. There was no corruption. There was no delay, and we were able to start this thing in Sri City within 2 months from the day we decided and signed this thing with Sri City. So that was the case of ease of doing business. And now, after that, this year we wanted to set up a plant in Chennai, in India, Tamil Nadu. And we also went through the single, because especially in the last 1.5 years, the environment for business in Tamil Nadu has changed. So there is a governance bureau set up in Tamil Nadu by the government. And you know what happened is, we went to the Tamil Nadu government through the bureau, and we said we had to go to Sri City because of these factors, and we wanted appropriate place, close to 10 acres of land. You would be surprised, within a month we were able to get the land allotted, and we also went are going through the single window concept. Normally, probably some of our friends in CCP clearance or
audio is breaking.
In Chennai, to get industrial license is not that easy. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it is a little better, but
hello, is it okay now?
The last part of 2 minutes, the audio did not come.
Okay. So I will probably repeat our experience with regard to the our experience with Sri City. We wanted to set up a unit in Sri's. A couple of years back, we wanted to set up a SEZ unit. So we were looking at some opportunity to set up that factory in Tamil Nadu. Unfortunately, we didn't get the proper place, and also there were delays. So we went to Sri City, and within 60 days, we were able to, fortunately, we got a constructed shed, and within 60 days we were able to start the production at that plant, and all the clearances were through single window, and we did not pay even a single pie there as a corruption. So that was what I was telling about ease of doing business. And subsequently this year, we wanted to set up another plant in Chennai. We want to consolidate a couple of our units and do an expansion in Chennai. So today the Tamil Nadu government has also realized ease of doing business is a must for the industrial growth. There is a governance body available, and we went through the governance body, and to a pleasant surprise, we were able to get things done much easier and faster. In fact, in my 20-25 years of this doing business in Tamil Nadu, this is the first time we were able to get everything done without any delay, without any hassle, without any so far not a single rupee of corruption. So that is the things are changing now everywhere in India with regard to ease of doing business. So any new startup or expansion we will be able to do, especially the Startup India, because I know about it, because my son-in-law is just setting up a new plant. So there, the Startup India is doing a lot of single window concept, and it is also making it easier to set up industries in India. And especially GST has also made the whole thing easier, and especially the transportation and the logistics between different parts of India is phenomenal. It is drastically reduced. Say, in fact, one of the reason the domestic truck industry has slowed down is because of the GST. Because prior to GST, each truck, for example, if we have to bring we had our own case study wherein before introduction of GST, that is during February 2018, we bought a machine from north, that is Ludhiana, and then it was coming here. It took us almost 45 to 50 days to bring entire machine from there, because it was coming in 5 to 6 containers. There are lot of this state border checkup and all. Finally, after the GST introduction, we had one more almost identical machine. Second set of identical machine was coming. We were able to get it within 20 days. So because of the reduction in the logistics time, the number of trucks which were which is available in the market, the utilization became better, and that was one of the reasons why the commercial vehicle had a little bit slowdown. And again, because of the road, the truck, that is overall weight that can carry per axle, they increase. A lot of states have increased. So that is another reason where the truck industry is not that that it has not witnessed the growth in the last couple of years. But now the government is almost on the verge of introducing the scrap policy. Hopefully, once that is introduced, even the truck industry in India will have a very good revival. And second is the quick access to the international market today is available, and the Chinese factor is also going to play a huge this thing in the opportunity for this thing. And today the finance availability is also better, and the overall the aspiration levels of average Indian youth has increased, by which there is also a demand for the auto sector is there. And then I would also like to touch upon some of the challenges for the SMEs. One is earlier it was region specific. Now with globalization and better logistics, the competitor is not only from the same state, he is also from a different state within India and also the globe. So that way, any SMEs, all SMEs are subjected to huge global competition. Then the obsolescence has become very much faster. like we were visualizing the obsolescence in the basically in the electronics industry, for example. Whereas even in the automobile industry today, the models are changing very rapidly. Earlier, I would say in the early 90s, there used to be, before Maruti or the new Japanese vehicles came into Indian market, we used to have only the Ambassador and Premier Padmini, and they were just changing the some of the front or changing the interior and calling it as a new model. But today, almost all the car manufacturers, they are bringing out at least 5 to 6 models every year, and that so which means the industry, the supply chain should also be able to adapt to that change and also develop new components very fast. So this is one of the big challenge for the Indian SMEs. Say when you are going for the new product development, it also involves cost. So it also involves tooling up. So the SME should be able to rise to that occasion. Otherwise, they will not be able to capitalize on the new market scenario. And today, even though India has got the highest number of youths which are employable, but the skill level has drastically come down. So I don't.
We have the audio issue again. Are you able to? Murali, are you able to hear us? Yeah, we are just rectifying the issue. I think his connection has broken. Murali, I think you may have to log out and log in, I think, because your connection it's frozen. If you can kindly log out and log in again. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Ms. Murli is logging out and logging in again. Yeah, we have lost the audio and I think Mr. Murli is logging in again.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, it is clear now.
Hello, am I audible? Okay, I'll just
Yeah,
share the screen.
sure.
Yeah, probably I like to think the poor infrastructure, and even though there are ease of doing business is very much there, there are still bureaucracy, indifferent bureaucracy, and corruptions really exist at the lower level. And one more area where we are at a disadvantage as compared to the other global nations is the fluctuation in the commodity prices. Say, especially in North America and Europe, any basic commodity prices, the fluctuations are determined by index. But whereas in India, there is no index, especially for steel and all. They at their will they do that. So this is and a lot of associations are now working with the government to bring some kind of a pattern and also some index into these commodity prices. Once it comes, we will also be in par with the other countries. Then one of the reasons why today the export of engineered product is a big opportunity is because traditionally China, all the global nations were going towards China because of that cheap, that they were very competitive, and over a period they also improved their quality, because a stage came wherein there were two distinct qualities available in China. One was substandard, and another quality which was on par with the world at a competitive price. So that was something which really made all the global OEMs and tier 1 to look at China. But today India also has that, because especially with our I will not call it as a cheap labor, with our optimum labor cost and also the skill that we have today, it is easy to compete with the developed nations. And second is, in developed nations today, the younger generations are not looking at they are looking at manufacturing industry with aversion. They don't want to work in a blue collar job or this thing. Another point is the environmental management cost there. To set up an industry, the kind of money that you have to spend in the environmental area is very high. Even though in India also now a lot of the pollution control board and Ministry of Environments, they have now brought in a lot of regulations, but the cost of such implementation is not much as compared to the other countries. And basically, as Indians, our communication skills are much better as compared to a Chinese or a European, Eastern European or a Asian country. So that's a big advantage, because whenever you deal with a global customer, they look at communication as a big asset, and we Indians have that. And second is, over a period, say we started Super Auto Forge, we started our exports in the late 90s. And from what we were at that time and what the facilities are there with regard to logistics, it's really different. And second is, with regard to the auto components, there's a huge volumes of it. This is something which is not available in any other industry. Maybe in a commodity it will be available, in a, for example, in the home appliances and all, it will be available, but there the cost is a limiting factor. But whereas in the auto industry, the high volumes are available at a reasonably priced part. And another major factor which is which is available for the Indian component manufacturer is the investment cycle. Normally what happens is, in auto industry, every 10 years, 10 to 15 years, an investment cycle happens. Say because the technology is fastly developing, every 10 to 15 years, they change their manufacturing lines, they change their assembly lines to keep in line with the current technology. See, currently between 2017 to 2022, this window, most of the global OEMs and tier ones, they are now in that phase and they are changing, they're upgrading the technology. See, when they upgrade the technology, now their whole thinking, considering the advent of the e-vehicles and all, they want to mitigate the risk. Because when such companies, global companies invest, the nature of their investment is very huge. Say, we in India, we don't look at such a huge investment, but they look at contingency, they look at a lot of other areas, and then they go for a huge investment. But now, right now, they are in double mind whether to invest or make or buy decision. I would say when they look at make or buy decision, they are now leaning towards buying these components and sub-assemblies from developed and countries where they can afford. So that way, there is a lot of opportunity for the Indian auto component industries. There are a lot of opportunities to supply not only the finished parts and sub-assemblies. And today, most of the global OEMs, they have set up their IPO office in India. Practically every OEM, be it Bosch or be it TRW, they have their IPOs in India, and they have huge target for their setup for their Indian IPO with regard to exporting out of India. So this is very, very important. This has made, there's a big opportunity, and we have to capitalize on that. And I would also like to just give some few tips. This is mainly out of the experience that we gained over a period with regard to export. Say, one is, there is no point in looking at everything, whether I can export this or that. Say, you have to have, based on your core competency, you have to design a product, and then that you should focus for export. And second is, when you look up, when you take or when you identify such a component or a product, first align with our domestic customer, establish the product in terms of your quality and in terms of your process, and then go to export. And second is, when you are into export, you have to have additional capacity, because when a customer comes to you for an export requirement, he is not willing to wait for more than 5 to 6 months for production. Even though the testing time and all will take more time, within that time he wants to have the supplier production ready. And second is, there are first few opportunities are very important, because the track record is what is more important. If you do the first time right in those first few opportunities, that itself will become a marketing point for you. And second is, especially when today there are also a lot of these agents. I would also say a lot of our NRI who are in US or in Europe, now they are looking at an opportunity to become a sort of a middleman or an agent for these OEMs, so that they can source component from India and give it to them. Say, so for example, if an Indian who is working in a TRW or Bosch, he wants to quit. At the same time, he would also tell them, okay, I have a lot of companies in India with whom I can work and develop these products. So when a company in India gets an opportunity through such middlemen, they should be very careful, because these engineered products, you should clearly understand the technical quality and service requirements. Otherwise, what happens is, they are not, sometimes, the middlemen, they don't give the full picture about it. And once you make a sample or mix for the first deliveries, you have a lot of issues. And the last is that there need to be a lot of patience and perseverance, especially when you start exports. Because especially when an OEM in an auto component industry, they do a complete, it is a total, when you development cycle, they just get a prototype, then they want the what is called as a PPAP. So the production readiness, they will look at it and get a small batch. From the PPAP time to the start of production, usually sometimes it takes even 6 to 7 months. You have to invest and keep waiting. So you should have wherewithal as well as patience to that. So one more area is, say we have, as I told you, commodity price in India, they are not steady. So we should have some kind of a raw material price clause, which you should provide with your customer in the agreement for the raw material price adjustment. It can be either quarterly or though. And we should also go through there are a lot of unwritten or there is small lettered words in the agreement, which we have to go through before we sign a contract. And second is, say basically we Indians, we take a lot of things for granted and we say something and we assume the other person will understand that. But when we are dealing with exports or export customer, we have to be transparent in terms of our process, in terms of our communication and quality. And the last one of the important factor is, when you are exporting the part out of India and it reaches the customer, normally it is almost 8 to 9 weeks of inventory, almost 6 weeks in ocean, and automatically you should have some kind of a warehouse wherein you keep at least 2 to 3 weeks of stock. This is very, very important, because what happens is today there are a lot of vagaries in the transportation. There can be a port strike, there can be a typhoon, there can also be a go slow. So considering all these things, if you don't have kind of a warehouse stock in the customer place, you may end up in a huge penalty. So you have to have some 9 weeks of supply chain inventory, and your planning has to be robust. So practically from the day you buy a raw material and from the day you realize your money, it will, because your raw material you give it takes 30 days to receive the goods order and receive the raw material, and then you have a manufacturing time of 4 weeks and another 6 to 8 weeks of transportation and another 3 weeks. In all, you will have the entire supply chain is close to 12 weeks, 12 to 16 weeks, and another 4 weeks for payment terms. So which means practically you get the payment from the customer only on the 5th month. So you should also plan your finances accordingly. This is again very, very important when you want to embark on exports. And I would also quickly touch upon the key challenges that is faced by the auto industry today in terms of the overall global requirements. One is the quality assurance. Today, quality is given. So basically, the auto industry was looking at parts per million in the last few years. But today, they have now gone zero defect. Say they don't want a zero instance and zero defect. They are not even talking about any defect. It has to be a zero. And they are looking at warranty clauses very strictly. And if you want to be a good exporter, you should also have a insurance for liability. It's very, very important. Otherwise, with the kind of clauses the customer is going to put, a liability insurance for the exporter is also a must. And today, what was accepted a couple of years back, it is not accepted today in terms of quality and service. And today, the best, what is the need of the hour is, they call it as OTIF. It is on time in full. If they want 300 numbers today morning, it has to be 300 at 10 o'clock, not 285 or 320. So that is the level of inventory they want to manage, and that's the level of precision planning they want to embark on. So with this, your entire planning, you should be able to do this. See why I was also talking about why the global OEMs are looking at India. See, they are looking at India for engineered product because of the innovation. See, they are one more major area there is those companies, they have been going through a particular process, and for them changing the process is a difficult and a painful thing, because they have to go through that. All their investments are tuned to that. But whereas when they come to a new source or a new supplier in India, they believe that Indians, they have their, they are well versed in CAD/CAM, they are well versed in design, so they look at Indians for innovation. So one of the key success factor for Superauto is why we were able to succeed in the international market or global exports is because of our innovation. So today, a lot of Indian companies are innovating. They are entering into the export market and they are doing well. And this is one key factor. And again, for success to grow, you have to have, because those days are gone where you cannot, okay, suppose if you want to limit yourself in a business environment, this is not in your hand. Because when you start exports, they don't want you to say no for future expansion, because they want to limit their supply base. And tomorrow, if you say I can't expand, probably you are also in a threat of losing the existing business also. So you should be willing to scale up and you should sustain that growth. And say they are also monitoring that. One thing is, especially during COVID days, they wanted even our balance sheet to be shared, because they want to know whether you can sustain this period, this tough period or not. So for an Indian exporter to succeed, we need today the environment. In this environment, one should be willing to scale up, sustain the growth, be profitable, and the last but not the least is they have to make the gap between you and your nearest competitor much higher, because the world is so competitive. Because normally such auto components, you have a 3-year we work with the customer on a 3-year period. 3-year you have to give a price reduction, but also you should also, there is a class says, if the customer is got a good source which is competitive enough, you should be able to match. Say if you want to remain in the business, always you should innovate, you should increase, probably you have to do a lot of forward integration and make the gap between you and your nearest competitor much higher. See, having said all these things, I would also like to share a few points about our growth at Superauto Forge, how we are able to achieve what we are today. See, most of you will be aware, there's a Superauto Forge was started by Mr. Sitaraman, the current chairman. Immediately after, he is also an alumni of Annamalai, and he started this after his graduation in '69. He worked for a couple of years in L&T and started this as a small machining unit called Microtons in Guindy. Then Superauto was started in 1975, and he was the first private entrepreneur to go into the coal forging area. So I've just given you a graphical this thing of how we grew. Say till 1990, the Superauto's turnover was hardly 3.62 lakhs. So at that time, actually in India we are only 1 or 2 coal forging companies in 1990. Say apart from Superauto, Sundaram Fasteners in one of the division, they were doing small coal forging. And otherwise, the most of the coal forging was done by the tier 1 companies themselves in the shop. So from that point, we had during the early 1990, when we looked at the market, there were a lot of opportunities. At that time, only this Maruti and all came. So at that time, we had close to 40 customers in India. Name it, whether it is a OEM or a tier 1, we were supplying parts like Telco, Leyland, even Escorts, Bajaj. What was happening is, by doing it, because these companies, you have to, because of the market vagaries, we also had most of them dissatisfied, because some of them were getting only 1 or 2 parts. There are other companies who are getting more parts. Then we did a brainstorming, and between 1990 to 1995, we decided, okay, let us concentrate on product families. Let us not do run-of-the-mill job, and let us go for a niche product. That is when, fortunately, we had a breakthrough on the CV joint parts. These CV joint parts are used for the front wheel transmission. It was very highly innovative and a very challenging part. So we went into that line, and we also went into some braking parts. We decided, let us limit ourselves into 2-3 product families. And between 1990 to 1995, from 40 domestic customer, we reduced it to only 5 customers. And then during that time, practically you can see we were flat. Between 90 to 95, we did not grow that much. Then we started concentrating on these specific part families. If you see in the bottom of the graph, we are now concentrating only in major 3 part families called drive shaft part, suspension parts, and brake parts. Whereas in 1990, we had, you name the component which was cold forging, we were supplying it. So by reducing the variety of parts and also reducing the customer, we were able to concentrate and then give good value addition to the customer, and also make a identity for Super Auto Forge. Today, I would say in the drive shaft, especially in the drive shaft family, in the global scenario, we are in the top 3 in the world. So that has helped us right from 2000, and we embarked on exports. Between we started our drive in the during the 96, and 2000 is the year is from where we started our bulk exports. So from 2000, practically we have been doubling our sales every 5 years. So currently we are currently last year we did around 700 crores, and our target is by the next 5 years we should reach 1,500 crores. So this is our strategy. And what has happened is, during this period, earlier we were doing only cold forging. Then in 2000, early 2000, we also ventured into aluminum forging and also warm forging. So that was in India. Today we are the only company which does cold, warm of both aluminum and steel, and that has given us a lot of advantage, and also we were able to enter into niche market. And from 2010, we have been scaling up in the export market. And one more, I would say, the big factor, especially in export, is, say, in the big OEMs, usually there is a lot of attrition in the people, and then purchaser from one company moves to the other company. So practically we were able to grow because of a word of mouth. And then for a company of our size, I would say we have our marketing strength is only 10 to 15 people, because of the nature of the product what we are doing. Not only that, and also the I would say the branding that we have established. And so this has helped us to grow in a big way. And today we are now concentrating, moving from finished parts, we have moved into sub-assemblies. And 2006, we started doing a lot of sub-assemblies to directly to Chrysler, and that is when we became a tier 1 company. Chrysler, Ford, and GM. Today we make close to 25,000 ball joints every day, which is exported to Chrysler. And also during the last financial crisis, that is in 2000, when we had the 2007 financial crisis, we were badly hit. At that time, we were almost 60% we were exporting, and the entire export was to North America, only to certain specific companies. So when the recession came, practically in some of our plants, we have to shut down the production for up to 4 to 5 months. Then we launched on a program by which we wanted to de-risk the company with regard to the region also. And currently we do close to 65 to 70% export. And our north, we are also into European, between Europe, America and Asia, we are almost 33% in each. So this is how, as a company, we have grown today, and our strength is our people. We have I'm also I would say proud to say our attrition rate above the senior engineer level is almost zero. So our people are our strength, and we have now come to a stage wherein we can globally we have a name, especially in the auto market, and we are also doing some small work in the non-auto sector. So having said that, I would like to conclude saying that there is a big opportunity for engineered products in India today, and those who are willing and those who have the appetite in their stomach, they can capitalize on that, and sky is the limit for this. Thank you for your patient listening, and sorry, in between I had to log off and log in.
Thank you so much, Mr. Murli, for a wonderful insight about the industry and about the market condition. You had broadly covered on the cold forging and hot forging, which was a very good engineering lesson for all of us in terms of knowing about the industry for those people in the alumni community who are not exposed to the forging industry. And you also covered about the Indian and global scenario, especially in the automotive industry, how the market is functioning. You touched upon the concepts of EV and hybrid as well. And when you look at an opportunity of 80,000 crores lying in front of us with the 10% shift of business to India, that's quite inspiring, and it's a big takeaway today for people to get to know about that kind of market potential that is happening. And it's a great news to also witness through one of the stalwarts that ease of doing business in India has greatly improved today, especially with the political leadership and the kind of dynamics that are happening, which is very encouraging for entrepreneurs. And a lot of challenges, do's and don'ts you covered for the SMEs, which will be a very big takeaway for our own industry people. And of course, at the end of the day, people have to maintain quality on their engineered products. There have been a lot of questions being posted through the chat box. And what I would like to do today is instead of posting the question through the chat box, we will let the concerned people unmute themselves and ask the questions. I'll read out the names who have been continuously posting the questions. First, we'd like to give the opportunity to Mr. Kabaliswaran. You can unmute and ask directly.
Hi, Murli.
Hey.
Kabali here.
Yeah.
Hey, great man. I posted some 1 or 2 technical questions. I think that we can put aside. But what is important is, as the industry, you said 92% is SME and only 4% is on the large group.
Correct.
The industry, this forging industry, as a association, are you pushing the government, central government, to encourage this particular business so that I'm a bit of a crazy Indian, anti-China kind of a man, so that we defeat the Chinese and go beyond? Are you pushing? Is the group association?
Yeah, we have an association called Association of Indian Forging Industry. In fact, I was the president, past president. I just relinquished the post only by this September. So what is happening is, in India, there's a huge opportunity. In fact, EPC has identified forging as one of the biggest opportunity for Indian exports. So we have been working with the government to set up some technology centers at least in 3 areas. As I had given you the detail, the forging cluster is in Chennai and Bangalore area. Second one is in Pune area, and third one is in North. So we have been pushing the government to set up a technology center basically for these SMEs, because basically if they have to compete with the world, they should have the best of the technology, so the development time can be shorter, and they can also do a lot of simulation techniques before they go to the sample development. So this is we are pushing the government, and the government is taking a lot of initiatives also. And one more thing is to make the forging environmental friendly, especially the heating. Earlier it was done by oil furnaces. Now a lot of induction furnaces have come to make this environmental friendly. Now the government of power health government of the government Ministry of Power has started a complete survey by which they want to make both the forging and foundry industry energy efficient and make it green. So that's all going on, but it will take some time.
Yeah, I now invite Mr. Bharadwaj to ask his questions. He has been posting a barrage of questions actually. So I would request him to limit to 2 or 3 questions, the most important questions for the limitation of time. Over to Mr. Bharadwaj. Please unmute and kindly ask your question.
Yeah, I hope everybody can listen.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. It was such a wonderful presentation. 1994 E&I. Very surprising. From E&I, I'm looking into a forging because I'm dealing with instrumentation, double compression fittings. And one of the challenges I always face is about getting forged components. Currently, I'm representing a company named Fluid Controls in Chennai. They are manufacturing in Pune. I think the main interest for me is hearty congratulations. To be a name to reckon with, to start everything from scratch. It's great to really listen everything from somebody who was created and brought superfoods to a big extent. In terms of forging hot and cold, I was looking at how did you manage really the availability of raw materials. I'm looking at Mumbai market is always a source. And I know in terms of Corona, we had great difficulty in sourcing raw materials. And that is one part of the question. And now when you say you're going for super light weighting, you mentioned about aluminum alloys. So how is that the forging industry under threat? How is it with aluminum as a raw material? How is that availability going to be sourced? Right? That's my second part. And just another question is Chennai corridor, Pune corridor, and NCR corridor. In terms of what are the inherent strengths of a Chennai corridor, because we are all from Chennai. I mean, most of the time, Niaz they say, no, you can't match the prices of Pune because my principles are in Pune. So, how does it all gel with that?
Yeah. Okay. I'll answer one after the other. In terms of raw material availability, probably the availability of raw material, the quality raw material has improved in the last decade. Say earlier in the early 90s, the quality of raw, especially for cold forging, you require a very high quality because you are going to forge it at room temperature. If the internal soundness of the material is not good, you will end up in cracks. So we were able to work with company raw material suppliers like Mukund, Bush, and ISMT. So today, Sunflag and all, the quality has come up a big way. With regard to the availability, okay, still there is the forging industry imports a lot of material, and also in India now these steel mills are setting up. There are a lot of new technology and new expansion is going on. So probably they will be able to match the availability also. But in the right now in the Corona period, there are issues, but it is manageable. And coming to the your point about Chennai North and this thing, say basically what's happening is whether it is by this thing, most of the cold forging is centered around Chennai and Bangalore. So Chennai and Bangalore cluster is known for its quality, delivery requirement, and lot of exporters. Say incidentally, The biggest forging company in the world is Bharat Forge. It is from India. Say today they have overtaken a lot of other companies, European and this thing. In terms of the production tonnage, they are the #1 in the world today. They have factories everywhere, but they are into hot forging. Now they are also going into the other areas. So basically, bigger forgings you have to go to north or west. Smaller forging, southern region is known for its the thing. And one big disadvantage for the southern region is most of the raw material has to come from north or west. So to that extent, the raw material price is increased. Except for JSW, we don't have good steel availability in Tamil Nadu or Bangalore. So this is a bigger disadvantage. Whereas with regard to aluminium, Hindalco is a good source, but they are the monopoly. But we also import a lot of material from Malaysia, which is Malaysia is a very good producer of aluminum.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope I've answered your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Murali. Now over to Mr. Sitaraman. Mr. Sitaraman, you can unmute.
Yes. Hi, Murali. I'm Sitaram,
Hi.
mechanical.
Yeah.
So your presentation is excellent. Your company is excellent company, looks like. I have got two questions. One is what I didn't realize, I didn't find the US mark, US industry percentage in your presentation. US doesn't have forging industry at all, or very less percentage, if I'm not mistaken.
No. North America, their percentage, they are only producing around 9 to 10%, because as I told you, from US, a lot of forging companies have shut down. But what has happened is in the last couple of years, there is a revival of forging industry in North America.
Okay. Second question is, in those days, India Forge used to be a very big company. What is the current status of that company now?
No, they are not doing that well. Almost they are on the verge.
Okay. Thank you. Nice presentation. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Mr. Ilangovan from Singapore, he would like to.
Thank you, Derek. Muralishankar, very good, fantastic. It covers all the various aspects of forging. A few queries. One is out of this 450 you mentioned, how many are exporters? How they are doing? One, and your own experience the last 25 years. How do you think the export market receiving Indian products, and what is your personal experience meeting the requirements of export requirements? Thank you.
As I had given in my presentation, almost now India, most of these out of these 450, I would say more than half of these companies, they are doing some exports. Only thing is exports may range from 10. And some of the companies, couple of companies like Forge and all, they are even more than 50%. So Super Auto, Forge, couple of other companies, we are more than 50% export oriented. Whereas a lot of other companies, they also export, and the opportunities are expanding. And it is not that only big companies can export. So even medium, small companies can export. Only thing is they should have that kind of wherewithal and infrastructure to meet these export demands. And with regard to the acceptance, right? It's I would say very good question. When we started our exports in early 1995, it was a big challenge. In fact, it took us almost 4 to 5 years to get the first order. So we used to go there, knock at the door, give presentation, and they will receive everything, and we won't get the thing. So the whole in fact, for us, the first breakthrough, we had developed some braking parts, supply to the customer. Unfortunately, this was a Lucas Bendix in US. Unfortunately, what happened as we gave the first samples and the PPAP lot, at that time the customer, the company was bought over by Bosch and they got merged. See, unfortunately for us, they said we are trying to downsize our vendor, and even though our previous management has given you the this part and developed it, but the new management is not willing to consider you. So that was a big blow for us. But at that time, the person who was in charge of the plant, he said, jokingly, he said, if you want to become a supplier, you take one of our paint parts, and if you are able to develop it, you can walk into our company. So actually, our export challenge started with that. In fact, we took that part, which was a casting part, which was an aluminum casting part. Until then, Super Auto was not, even though we did attempt some aluminum forging, we had not done it, but we definitely took it as a challenge, and we were able to develop it within record time. We went back to the customer, and that really made them sit up and then change the whole attitude. And today, as I told you, the perception about Indian manufacturer is totally changed. They are treating you in line with the US or American manufacturers. In fact, I'm happy to say on lot of products, we work with the engineering of the customers concurrently, even in giving inputs for the design of the parts, because the engineers in the design department, they don't know much about forging. So we give a lot of inputs to design the part and to dimension it. So that way, the perception is totally changed. We have a very good this thing about they look at Indian manufacturers with high esteem.
Yeah,
good. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Murali. Next question is from Mr. Rohit Joshi. Can you please unmute? Rohit, can you please unmute and ask? Yeah, I pass it over to Mr. Vaitheeswaran, Mr. P. Vaitheeswaran.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Your presentation is very good and very informative, sir. Actually, I am in the valve field. We are manufacturer of valves, sir. Most of the bigger valve forgings are from Italy, but Indian size, the bigger size is not available. Why the reason, sir?
No, you have to approach the right person.
Okay.
There are a lot of bigger forging companies. In fact, to be honest, some of the companies have got even 9,000 ton presses also.
Okay. Okay.
I'll probably share some of the companies' names.
Okay, because the valve body and bigger valves, everything, Italy only they are mostly supplying to many
Correct.
people.
Correct.
The other one, general question, what about the 3D printing? What is the future of 3D printing, sir? For now, the plastic is coming. In future, now also the available of metal is available. But what? Say
auto component industry, there was a GE ventured into 3D printing in a big way. But what is happening is the cost-wise and competitiveness-wise, and also the lead time for manufacturing it, there is a big gap. So maybe where 3D printing can come in 2 years, manufacturing of fixtures, some manufacturing of some complicated toolings, or some spare parts for equipments. But for mass production of auto components, in fact, to my knowledge, till now, nothing has happened. Whereas in the area of aeronautics, a lot of 3D printing has started.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vaithi. Now we invite Mr. SSP to.
Hi, Murali.
Solva.
See, our industry is very much affected in the COVID period because of the migrant laborers and labor force. How you are managed? You have migrant laborers, or you are getting laborers in Chennai itself?
Okay, I'll answer your point in two. This thing. One is, as far as Super Auto is concerned, fortunately, we don't have any migrant labor. In fact, 3 years back, in fact, we were having huge migrant labor. 3 years back, we took a decision that we will, because we had a lot of quality issues, especially when you have the migrant labor, because of the communication and the discipline, especially in the auto component sector. When you are exporting, even if there is one indiscipline, that can result in a huge quality problem. So we had internal debate, and 3 years back, we took a decision. We will completely come out of them. And on one fine morning, we stopped. We had a lot of production issues, production let down because of that, but we managed it. So one major, I would say that this has helped us in the COVID time. Whereas compared to the other areas, other auto component industries or forging, they also had migrant labor, but they were able to manage within, I would say, within the next, during July and August, they had problem, but September, most of them are back to normal. Say what they have done is, some of the migrant labor with whom they have been working long, they brought them back, but parallelly, they also developed skill set with the local people.
But are the labors are available here? Because in our industries, availability is
But
very, very less.
Fortunately for manufacturing, it is available, but you have to train them.
Okay.
Say, for example, we are lot of today, even the BE people, electrical, even BE electrical, they are willing to come and operate your CNC machines.
Okay. Excellent presentation, Murali. I think you have developed a lot of competitors today by your way of speech and presentation. Even I am thinking to become a competitor to your son-in-law. Okay.
Okay, I'll be happy. It's like this, Sarana Perumal.
Yeah.
There's a huge opportunity, especially for auto component industry. There's a huge opportunity, and those global OEM who have gone to China, they have burned their fingers, and they are looking at an alternative source. And if we as a nation, if we can rise up, we can become the #1 in the world. There is absolutely no problem.
Thank you. Very much impressed. Thanks a lot.
I have one more small suggestion. Instead of becoming a competitor to his son-in-law, he can be complimenting his son-in-law.
But my son-in-law is not into manufacturing. He is looking at something else.
Something else.
Now I request VA from Sundaram Fasteners, China.
Murali, it was a really good presentation.
Thanks, Armo.
Even some of the areas that actually earlier I was working with the Upasana, actually we were be a competitors, in fact. So
yes.
Some of the cases, and when I was working in Sundaram Fasteners in Hosur, and subsequently I developed the company in Upasana. So most of the components we were trying to actually compete with you.
Yes.
Not on the aluminum components, more on the coal forging components.
Correct.
But really the growth, what you have achieved is really a very fantastic growth, I would say that. And this is really a very fantastic growth. And the components what you manufacture are all very, very critical. These are all. So unless otherwise the forging people who know the forging only can understand the real complexity of the components you manufacture. So this is really a great thing. And definitely, this is I want you to be a #1 company in India. That should be your approach. So why you are
in
talking
terms of not in terms of Armuham, not in terms of volume or tonnage, because we are not making such a big component. Say, for example, if Bharat Forge makes 1,000 front axle beams, so they will tonnage wise we can't compete. Maybe in terms of cold forging today, cold and warm forging, we are #1 in India.
Yeah, maybe. So really good. It's all the best in your future 2025 target of 1,500 crores.
Thank you. We need a lot of well-wishers like you.
Sure.
Thanks, Armugam. I think Rohit Joshi is raising his hand. We'll take that as the last question.
Okay.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. My name is Jit Joshi. I have just one question. Is there any specific part like in European Union and US, there are some strict pollution control norms. So
Yeah.
this will help India to grow the forging business?
Yeah, exactly. See, what is happening is today, say a lot of restrictions have come in US and Europe. So especially European Union. That's the reason a lot of forging companies are closing down there. And it is also giving a lot of opportunities for us. Not only forging, even auto components, there's a huge opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Rohit. Vish, you have unmuted. You would like to ask any question?
Yeah. Hi, Murli. It was a
Hi, Vish.
thing. Our factory is actually about 7-8 kilometers from your main factory. In fact, I had the pleasure of Mr. Sitaraman visit our factory and spend an hour and a half. I don't know whether you are aware that through
I know that.
Bharadwaj, we are working on composite parts.
Yeah. We are doing a lot of. We are assisting him.
Okay.
In doing a lot of trials, everything. Yeah.
In the metal section, I am helping him in the composite.
Good.
So probably one of these days you should visit our factory.
We'll do that.
And,
Definitely.
Because if you read Vision 2020 of Abdul Kalam, he says composites will replace metal. In 3 places he mentions that. I was one of those few people who believed it. Definitely my banker did not believe that. Anyway, so since I know one of these days you should visit our factory. Okay.
Definitely, yes.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Gopi, shall we have Professor T.R. Jagadishan from our university? He wanted to talk about the instrumentation facility. Gopi?
Is from our university, from the 1961 batch, mechanical engineering.
Okay.
He retired as dean faculty of engineering from Anna University, and now he is working as a consultant for our university now. So he will. So you can go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. My greetings to all of you. Nostalgic memories. When Muralishankar was giving, my memory went 63 years back, and I was listening to a beautiful lecture by a chemistry professor. So when he is talking, I believe that I'm just listening to my chemistry professor teaching me chemistry. I hope you can understand. I belong to 1956, 56-60 batch, mechanical engineering. Many of you have not born at that time probably, or small kids. So our chemistry professor, I still remember him. Sometimes he has class in our own faculty, or we go to the arts college, and his lectures were simply fantastic. He made chemistry a very lovable subject for us. So when Murali was talking, my memory went, and that's why I was listening to the chemistry lecture. My congratulations to you, Murali.
Thank you.
Just like your dad, did a fantastic job. May God bless you. Now, coming to your lecture, I'm very happy that you have told how it will not be very difficult for us to take China on its real grip and then do things and make India really great. And your Sitaraman is a good friend of mine. He was junior to me by about 7-8 years. But then we saw the good growth of your company over the years. And I was in Guindy Engineering College from 1960, immediately after passing Annamalai, the first fellow to join Guindy Engineering College as a teacher. And I grew up to become the number 2 in the Anna University. But that's a big story. But then I was so impressed by really encourage youngsters, and I really very, very happy that many entrepreneurs have come from our university, mainly because when we were in the college, we were not only taught engineering, but then how to really assume leadership role in whatever area you engage yourself in. So this courage and faith, our motto, has really proved. Sitaraman, Murali, and I'm happy that your son is also coming into the group. I'm indeed very happy, and your lecture was brilliant. It's really a thought-provoking lecture, and you told the ways. The part I liked was you are a traditional auto manufacturing companies, but you have seen what is written on the wall. We are going for electric car vehicles. How do we really change from the conventional IC engine? I am an IC engineer myself, so I am out of the business. So you find that people like you are trying to really get into the groove cars over IC engine driven vehicles. I want to manufacturers also are thinking on those lines and follow your example to really change their views that are going to happen in the next 5-6 years. I'm indeed very happy, but I just want to add something not directly connected with that. How I got into this? I'm a retired guy.
Gopi, his audio is breaking, Gopi.
But my city.
His voice is breaking.
His voice is breaking.
The Vice Chancellor and we would like to have instrumentation and research. So we are in the process of setting up a center for sophisticated instruments and interdisciplinary research in Annamalai University, our alma mater. So we are all chipping in, drawing kind of support from all the alumni so that that dream will come true. Just now they completed the plan, elevation, and all those things. They're going to start the construction. And my request is that all alumni from Annamalai University should come forward to support this project.
Sure, sir.
Sitaraman has already expressed he is a member of the committee. Send you the details. Please do come forward and support this project so that one glad thing is recently they have published the number of scientists who are in the top 2% in the world. And you know, there are 9 professors from Annamalai University who are in that list. That is, our university is growing, the research capabilities are growing, number of research papers are growing in numbers, number of PhDs are growing, and somebody was talking about composite material. The professor in this area in our university, Dr. Balasubramaniam, please do make use of it. And you know, he's doing fantastic job in the area of composites and material. And I am very happy to interact with you. Thank you, Gopi, for giving this opportunity to me. And I interacted with you. And I wish you all the best. May God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Tariq, can I have one more moment, one small question, quick question,
yeah,
if you
sure,
won't mind?
Sure, please go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Murali Kabali here. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, please. Murali, in my experience, in my previous experience, you know, on particular this thing, the government put a ban on imports. They were saying that the thing is to develop the parts locally. Okay, you know, that push really gave a good momentum to the local manufacturing. So what kind of a think the present government is doing, because, you know, to step up, scale up this particular industry? Hello? I think he did not hear me, maybe.
Yeah, I think his audio is again gone. But he's there.
Murli, do you hear us?
I think not.
I think it's gone.
No, now he's joining again. Yeah.
I'll just make that a brief, quick this thing the moment he's back.
Yeah, I got disconnected. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Murli. Just a quick question. You know, in my earlier experience, I was working for audio industry. The government put a ban on some of the parts that we were importing. You know, that the government was saying that is to encourage the local industries, Indian industries, to get into the components manufacturing to the next level. What kind of a subsidy or something like that, so that, you know, the Indian forging industry gives a challenge to the rest of the world, and what are the boosting factors or subsidies the government is offering to you now?
No, for forging industry, nothing. But because forging industry is part of the auto component industry, say for the auto component industry now, there are a lot of state government and central government subsidies. Say the state government, whatever the investment, now it all depends on state to state. Say the auto component industry, not only forging, any industry now the government is offering a lot of subsidies.
Okay, good. Thanks for your answer. Thanks a lot. Congrats, man. It was really thrilling. Very, very good. God bless.
Thank you.